Alright, let's forget about those Pinterest picture-perfect homes, shall we? Today we're looking at real homes. The kind with tricky layouts and challenges that actually require a bit more creativity to solve. A little while ago, I asked you to send me your home design challenges so I could give you my somewhat professional opinion. So yes, this is another episode of What Would Maria Do? Okay, folks, this time I selected 2 spaces only, but trust me, they're more than enough. Both are unique, both have their own set of layout puzzles, and both needed some clever thinking to actually make them functional and cozy. So let's get straight into the first one. This is Nicole's studio apartment. She's moving into this place with her husband and their dog, and she's not sure how to position the furniture they already own or how to make the space feel cozier. Because right now, it's basically a white box with glossy tile. It's a rental, so nothing can really be changed. Not even the wall color. This room has to function as a bedroom, living room, a dining area. They also use the dining table to work and study, but Nicole wonders if it's possible to fit yet another workstation in the space. So as always, let's start with the layout, because this room is actually quite the challenge. Oh, by the way, she also sent this picture with a few items that they already own, so I'll try my best to fit most of them in here. Here's my first thought. Let's define the zones. First, the dining table should stay close to the kitchen, so it belongs somewhere in this front section. Then, it doesn't make sense to walk through the bedroom to get to the living room, so the bedroom area will go at the very back. And finally, right in the center, we'll have the living space. Let's bring in the 2 chairs and the TV console. So we've got 3 zones: living, bedroom, and dining. Now, let's refine this, starting with the dining area. As you can see, we cannot fit 4 chairs here. The table will need to float too far from the wall for this to be possible, and that would, of course, block the circulation. And since this is a studio apartment, I'm guessing this is not a home where large gatherings usually happen. So I'm adding just 2 chairs. This keeps it functional day to day, and if friends do come over occasionally, they can pull the table forward and grab a couple of stools stored in the corner. Something's clearly missing here, and that's storage. They need something like a closet or a dresser to store their stuff, right? They do seem to have some kind of open hanger situation based on the photograph that she sent me, but I'm going to try to fit something a bit larger here. Something that also works as a room divider to give the bedroom area some more privacy. So first, I tried placing the wardrobe right here next to the bed, and that works, of course. But then I thought, what if we rotate the bed like this? Now we have space for the wardrobe and we can actually fit a desk here. Yes, it's tight. And having one side of the bed close to the wall is not an ideal situation for couples, but in tiny spaces, sometimes you have to make compromises to gain another functionality. So the chair tucks under the desk when not in use, and everything fits. I think it's worth it. Or, alternatively, they could add an additional wardrobe here instead of the desk if storage is the priority. But I will go with the desk option because I always try to separate work from the rest of the home whenever possible. To finish the bedroom zone, I will add a nightstand behind the bed. Yes, behind. It's a bit unconventional, but with a narrow space like this, I actually think it works and it still serves its purpose. Now let's add a few final layout touches. To define the living room area, I'm adding a round rug. Rectangular rugs tend to crop narrow spaces, so I do prefer round rugs in these situations. Next, a side table or an ottoman right here next to the chairs, because extra surfaces are always helpful. Then we can add a floor lamp here next to the TV and a tall plant to partially conceal the desk area as it tends to get a bit messy. And of course, the dog needs a corner. So this spot right here becomes the dog zone with a comfortable dog bed and his balls. And there we have it. 3 zones, 4 functions, 1 long, narrow studio. Now let's make it pretty. Alright, since we're starting with a blank room, I'll just add a couple more curtain panels here just to make them look more full. And then let's start bringing in their furniture. So the bed goes right at the back. Then the 2 chairs go here facing the TV, and the table stays near the kitchen. Okay, so right now everything is very black and white, very neutral and uninspiring. So there's a bit of wood from the media console, but since we're not changing the wall color and we obviously can change the floors, we do need more wood to balance out those cold floors and cool walls. So I'm starting by adding these beautiful wooden dining chairs, and I chose a darker tone to add contrast without competing with the black table. Okay, moving on to the living room, I wanted to keep the center of the space free for circulation, so I'm adding this rattan ottoman right here next to one of the chairs. And if you watch my videos, you know that I love this specific ottoman. It's from IKEA. It's a stool, it's a side table, it has storage, it's beautiful, a great multifunctional piece. And I always try to bring some variety to my videos and my designs, but hey, it's not my fault that this specific ottoman is kind of perfect, okay? So I'm just gonna use it again. Okay, next let's bring in the closet. And I chose this bamboo one from IKEA because it is such a key item for integrated rooms like this. And I love how it looks. It kind of gives this Japandi vibe. It provides storage and acts as the most beautiful room divider. So right beside it, I'm adding a black side table to serve as the nightstand. And to complete the bedroom area, a walnut desk that ties in with the dining chairs and adds warmth, plus this gorgeous red office chair for a pop of color. And I love a good pop of red. Now for some decorative touches. I'm starting with a tall fiddle leaf tree right here next to the desk, and oh my god, it instantly makes the room feel alive. I love the power of plants. Next up, the rug. Now, Nicole mentions that she does love rugs, but is a bit hesitant because of the dog and the price. And listen, totally valid concerns. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. But a rug makes such a difference in spaces like this. Just look at the difference. And personally, I think it's worth it. And I chose this green rug because we needed some more color here in this space, especially to balance the cold floors. And Nicole said that she likes fall tones. Greens, browns, burgundies, so this rug is perfect. And yes, I've used it in previous designs, I know, but I have my personal favorites, okay? So here it is again. So now let's talk lighting. I'm adding a wood base floor lamp next to the TV to tie in with the dining chairs and the desk, so all 3 spaces feel connected and cohesive. Then I would replace this central bulb here with a ceiling track with spotlights to make the whole space feel cozier. I do prefer spotlights rather than regular flush mounts because of the mood that the directed light creates. And it's black, so it adds contrast and interest to the ceiling as well. So I think this is a good solution here. All right, and for the side table or ottoman, let's add a cute red lamp here. Now, in the bedroom area, instead of replacing the ceiling bulb with like a regular flush mount or something like that, here's my suggestion. Let's hang a beautiful pendant over the nightstand, like so. Now, this becomes the primary bedroom light and it creates the softest mood. And I think it brings so much more visual interest than having like a pendant where the bulb currently is, or if like we kept this ugly light bulb or something. So I like this solution. It's a bit more creative than others, let's say. And of course, you can still add like a table lamp for some task lighting on the desk. Finally, let's fill some walls. I'd hang a gallery of framed photos above the living room chairs for a personal touch, and these tend to be very inexpensive, which is great. And the mirror that they already own can go right here above the dog's bed. And there you have it. Here's how the room looked before: a long, narrow, white corridor with no warmth. And here's the after: a stylish, multifunctional home, even with the white walls and glossy tile floor. On to the next room. Wait, real quick before I move on to the next room, I got some news to share. If you like room transformations like this and wonder how I actually work to achieve the final results that you see, Now you can watch my entire design process on my Patreon, from the reasoning behind the layout choices to how I work with Photoshop to achieve this realistic mockups that you see here, and everything, all the back and forth that's in between, it's all gonna be there. You can either choose to subscribe to my Patreon or purchase each video separately, but either way, you're gonna be supporting my work and this channel, and this would mean the world to me. I'll leave the link in the description, so go check that out if you want to peek behind the curtains and have a few extra perks. This is Amber's living room. She lives alone with her cat, and this space is meant to be her cozy retreat. Right now, though, she's not even using it. The room has basically become a storage spot for random things, because she's not sure what to do with it. She did try playing around with some layout ideas in Procreate, which I love, but she wasn't confident about any of them. The photo she sent me is from the room was still empty before she moved in, so we're really starting with a blank slate here. She's open to buying a new sofa and some other pieces, but she also sent photos of some items she already owns that she'd like to incorporate somehow. Amber is renting, but she can paint the walls and drill, so that's a great thing. The only thing she can't touch is the carpet, unfortunately. She does already have a rug in this space, and she told me that she'd love to layer other rugs to create this interesting layering effect, so I'll keep that in mind. Alright, so let's have a look at the layout, shall we? So when I first looked at this floor plan, the very first thing that I thought was, we need a spot for the TV. Whenever a room feels confusing or tricky, I like to start by finding a spot for the TV, because in my experience, everything else kind of falls into place after that. Based on the photos and the architectural shape of this room, it became very clear to me that the TV belongs right here, on this central wall that almost looks like a giant column. And honestly, I have no idea why this wall doesn't have a fireplace. It's kind of the perfect wall for a fireplace, but anyway, TV it is. So with that sorted out, the next question becomes, where does the sofa go? And in my mind, the only place where a sofa can realistically fit is right here in front of the TV on this little portion of wall next to the door opening. So then the next question becomes, can we actually find a sofa, like a real piece of furniture that has these dimensions? This wall measures around 1.7 meters, or more precisely 172 centimeters. So we need something slightly smaller than that. And luckily, IKEA has a few options within that range, so I wasn't too worried. I'll choose the exact model when we get to the style phase, but for now, I'm using one that measures around 170 by 85 centimeters, which fits this spot perfectly. And now we have the ideal sofa to TV relationship. With the sofa in place, there is clearly enough room for a coffee table here as well. And in one of the photos that she sent me, I noticed like a blue ottoman, or maybe this large tufted coffee table ottoman. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but you can see it. And I think this would be perfect for the living room as a coffee table. So I'm placing it right here in front of the sofa. And even with that, the room is still wide enough to maintain a clear path of travel through the center. Now, with the living area done, we're left with two long, narrow spaces, one on each side of the sofa zone. So let's start with the one closer to the window. She sent me some mock-ups that she made in Procreate, which is absolutely fantastic. And one thing that stood out is that she clearly loves reading, or that she at least has a lot of books. So I took that as the starting point, and I added a bookshelf here in this corner by the window. And I used the IKEA Billy bookshelf as a reference, because I think it's perfect for the space. It's not too deep, and it fits here nicely. To make this a proper reading nook, we need a comfortable chair. She has two chairs, according to this image, but their styles are very different. So I decided to pick just one. And in this case, I chose the white one with this built-in ottoman. And I'm placing the chair here facing the sofa, not the TV. So it creates this interesting layering effect just in front of the bookshelf. I mean, we could also place the chair on the opposite side facing the TV, but my guess is that whenever she wants to watch TV, like watch a movie or something, she'll just sit in the couch. So I just think placing the chair like so creates this much more intentional reading corner. That's why I chose this layout. And of course, this nook needs a side table. You can't read a book with a cup of coffee with nowhere to put your coffee, right? So there you have it. The Billy bookshelf leaves just enough space behind the chair for a floor lamp, so I'm taking advantage of that and I'm placing one here as well. And voila, cozy reading nook complete. Now for the other side, and this door here leads to the entryway. And because I'm not sure what storage she already has in the entryway, I thought it would be nice to place a cabinet here. So it could serve as a supporting piece for the entry, like storage for shoes, like a catch-all tray, or just a place for extra decorative objects. So I'm adding a slim cabinet on this wall. And that leaves us with the opposite narrow zone right here. In her mock-ups, she added even more bookshelves here, but I wanted to bring some variety while keeping the same vibe. So instead of a full bookshelf, I'm actually placing a chair here. And this is not to sit on, it's actually gonna serve as a side table. And I'm really into using chairs and stools as side tables lately, because I think it adds this subtle touch of repurposing furniture. I think it's so cool. And next to that, I'm stacking a few books directly on the floor. I love this look. I feel like it's lived in and artistic without trying too hard, you know? And it also ties super well with the reading nook on the opposite side. So I'll go with that. Now let's jump back into the living area for one quick addition. I realized that we could actually fit a console table here under the TV, since we don't have a fireplace. And I wasn't sure at first, but a 35 centimeter deep console would work and it would still leave enough circulation in the center. So I'll go ahead and add this extra console table here. And this gives Amber extra storage and a place for the TV equipment, which is also nice. Finally, with all furniture in place, let's define the zones. And you know what that means. Rugs. I'm using a large rug here to define the main sitting area. Then, because Amber mentions that she already has one dark rug and wants to layer more on top, I'm leaning into this layering effect and adding a second, smaller rug above the larger one to connect the sitting area with the chair and books vignette on this other side. And finally, I'm adding a third rug to define the reading nook by the window. And for this one, I chose a round rug. All right, and that completes the layout. Now, let's make it pretty. Let's start bringing in the furniture. First, the sofa. I chose this one from IKEA because when I compared it with the photos that she sent me and the inspiration and so on, the color is very similar to one of the chairs that she already owns, this deep red, almost burgundy tone. And in terms of style, I think it also connects really well with the vibe of the mock-ups that she made, so this was the one that I chose. It has this slightly more traditional feel that works beautifully in here. Next, let's add the coffee table / ottoman. I found one online that looks similar to the piece that she already has, so it should look something like this. And honestly, I love the combination of the muted red from the sofa and this baby blue tone from the tufted ottoman. So I think the contrast is so beautiful. Now, let's head to the reading nook. I couldn't find the exact model for her chair, but this one is very close. And I added a matching ottoman to represent the one that she owns. Next to the chair, a side table. And I chose a small walnut one with an interesting base to add a little character without overwhelming the nook. And finally, the cabinet next to the entrance door. Since most of the furniture in this room already leans into this walnut tone, I selected a cabinet with a similar finish to help keep the consistency and cohesion throughout. Now that the big pieces are in, let's start adding the decorative touches. The first thing that I'm bringing in is curtains. And in her inspiration images, I noticed that she used this reddish orange curtains, so I'll go with that. I'd hang floor-to-ceiling curtains to cover the large window, and I choose light filtering fabric, so we still preserve that gorgeous natural light. And I'm also adding the same curtains to the doorway next to the sofa, because she did that in her mock-ups, and I actually think it's a great idea. It adds texture, color, and a soft sense of separation, which is great. Now let's talk lighting. In her mock-ups, she used a really unique chandelier, so I wanted something with a similar vibe. That's why I chose this one, and I think it is stunning. It adds so much interest to the ceiling. But instead of placing it exactly where the current ceiling bulb is, I'd actually shift it closer to the living area. So it's centered above the ottoman/coffee table. And I think it's always better when the chandelier helps define the space. And in addition to that, since this is a path of travel, like right here where the current bulb is, I try to keep it slightly out of the way, because you don't want a chandelier right in the middle of a place where you walk through every single day. Now for the smaller touches. Let's add cushions to the sofa. I chose these beautiful ones with shades of green and pink to lean into this slightly girly, cozy vibe that I'm aiming for. And for the reading nook, I chose another velvet cushion, also in tones of red and pink, just to tie everything together. And now let's bring some life to the walls. In the mock-ups that she made, she used several pieces of colorful art, and I like to imagine that she painted them herself, but I'm not sure. So I found pieces with a similar vibe. Colorful, abstract, expressive. So I'm adding a bunch of them here above the sofa. And to create a beautiful vignette above the cabinet by the door, I chose this piece in shades of pink. And in front of it, I'm placing a vase with natural flowers and a candle for a little extra coziness. Time for the rugs, because the rugs are doing a lot of zoning work here. First, the main rug to define the living room. I chose one with a more vintage feel, with touches of blue and red that tie back to the furniture. It kind of grounds the space really nicely. Then, on top of that, I'm layering a brown jute rug to bring texture and contrast while still keeping things neutral enough. Finally, for the reading nook, I chose a round jute rug with an interesting pattern. It creates its own little moment and contributes to this warm, slightly feminine mood that we're building. Now, everything is in its place and the room is looking great, but I think it could actually look better. So let's paint the ceiling. If you've watched my previous episodes, you will know that I'm in my paint the ceiling era. I don't know. I just think it adds so much more interest and warmth to a space. So I will paint the ceiling here in this living room. And for this space specifically, I chose this subtle pink shade for the ceiling, just to make it even more girly. I think it echoes the tones in the wall art and the cushions without being overwhelming. It adds this beautiful wash of warmth over the entire space, and I think it connects super well with the vibe that she was aiming for in her mock-ups. So here's the same room from another perspective. From this angle, we're still missing a few elements to complete the whole look, so let's bring those in. First, let's finish the cozy reading nook by adding the Billy bookcase, and I chose the walnut finish for this one to connect with the rest of the furniture and keep everything cohesive. And to complete that corner, I'm adding this beautiful floor lamp. I love the base of this one. I think it has this slightly feminine vibe, almost flower-like silhouette, which is perfect for the vibe of the room. Next, let's hang the TV. And since this room is full of art, I immediately thought of the Samsung Frame TV, and I think it would be an amazing option here. Or really any TV that has an art mode would also work here. I think it's so cool because when the TV is not in use, it can display artwork, and so it blends right in, which is perfect for this situation. And to lean even further into the color palette, I chose a red frame for the TV, just to bring in that extra touch of warmth and unexpectedness. Okay, so underneath it, let's bring in the console table. And this one is compact, so it fits the space perfectly. And I styled it with a few books and a vase with an indoor plant for a little bit of greenery. Now for the final vignette. Let's add the chair, and I chose this simple but beautiful wooden one. And the wood tone matches the console table here. So we have some nice cohesion going on. And on top of it, I stacked a couple of books and added a table lamp with this cute rattan shade. When lit, it gives off this really cozy glow, and you know that I love adding multiple sources of light to a space. Next to the chair, I'm adding a tall stack of books and magazines with a couple of candles up top to create that lived-in personal feel. So cool. And finally, to complete this vignette, I decided to hang a tapestry. Another artwork would also have worked, but I just felt a textile would bring even more texture to the room. And this one has these bold red-orange tones that kind of tie everything together beautifully. Alright, and that's it. That completes the whole room. So here's my favorite part. Here's how the room looked before, and here's the after. It is an oddly shaped room, but we were able to turn it into this cozy room full of personality, and I love it. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Hey, if you're wondering which software do I use to create these visualizations, look no further. As you know, my first step is to always look at the layout and play around with the possibilities, and to do that, I use Rayon Design, the sponsor of today's video. Rayon Design is a new next-generation software for interior architecture and design. The interface is sleek and clutter-free, and you don't need a powerful computer or complicated installation. With Rayon, I can quickly draw and edit floor plans and layouts, either starting from scratch or using one of their many templates. Then it's just drag and drop. With over 4,000 elevations and top view blocks in their library, it's easy to test different layouts and make them look amazing. But if you need to represent a product that's not in their library, now you can quickly create new product blocks using their new AI tool, which is honestly great. You can do so much more than that, of course, but this is my favorite way to use this tool right now. Of course, this is all great for both professionals doing more complex work, like feasibility studies or detailed millwork, and interior design enthusiasts who just want to improve their own homes. And here's another great feature. You can share projects and even invite teammates to collaborate in real time on the same canvas. Plus, you can import and export multiple file formats. It's honestly great. I use it consistently. So if you'd like to try it out for free, click the link in the description. And thank you Rayon Design for sponsoring this video. Okay, so what did you think of these two transformations? Did you like it? To me, they were quite the challenge. I spent a lot of time thinking about the layout and how I could make each room cozy and full of personality without trying too hard or without major renovations, since we're dealing with rentals here. So I do hope that you liked it. This is the 5th episode of the What Would Maria Do series. So if you haven't watched the previous ones, here's one. But before you do that, don't forget to leave a like in this one if you liked it. And of course, consider subscribing to the channel to see more content like this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.